another edition of Conversations with CASA. My name is Vicki Spriggs. I'm the CEO of Texas CASA and the facilitator. Conversations with CASA is a monthly production of Texas CASA that highlights issues and trends in the child welfare system. We have two guests today, Katie Olse, who's the CEO of the Texas Alliance of Child and Family Services, and Candice Dosman, who is the director of the Collaborative Family Engagement Initiative here at Texas CASA. Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
I am going to first introduce Katie, and then I'm going to introduce Candice, and then we're going to start this dialogue. Does that work for you?
That's great.
Super. Okay. So Katie, as I said earlier, is the CEO of the Texas Alliance of Child and Family Services. Katie has an extensive bio. In fact, both ladies have an extensive bio that I've cut just to stick to the highlights that are relevant to what we're talking about today. So Katie was appointed as the executive director of the Alliance back in December of 2016, and then named CEO in December of 2018. She formerly served as the deputy commissioner for the Department of Family and Protective Services. And prior to her role as deputy commissioner, she was the associate commissioner for the Department of Family and Protective Services, we all call DFPS. So from this point on, I'm going to say DFPS. But she was the associate commissioner for DFPS and chief of staff for the Texas Health and Human Services Commission. Katie served as the senior policy advisor to the executive commissioner for DFPS and the former Department of Assistive and Rehabilitative Services. Katie was previously the director of the Center for Consumer and External Affairs at DFPS, where she worked closely with the DFPS commissioner and the legislature on critical issues within the child protection, regulatory, adult protective, and prevention early intervention realms. Prior to joining the Health and Human Services system, Katie was the executive director of a statewide nonprofit organization where she worked on health and human services issues, as well as other issues including education, criminal justice, and mental health. So that's Katie. Now let me introduce Candice. Candice is very familiar to those of you who are in the Texas CASA network. Candice has worked in the field of social services for more than 25 years, beginning her career in corrections. Candice has worked with homeless and at-risk youth in residential care systems and spent the majority of her career at the Family and Children's Services of Waterloo Region, Children's Aid Society in Ontario, Canada. Throughout her time at Family and Children's Services, Candice worked as a case manager for young people in the foster care system, as well as a Family Finder Connection Facilitator. In the role of Family Finder Connection Facilitator, Candice coached and provided consultation to child protection staff and supervisors on the family finding model, helping them incorporate it into their everyday practice. Candice is a skilled facilitator of family meetings, which holds family members and other natural supports at the center of planning and decision-making for families involved in child protection. Candice has been mentored by Kevin Campbell, family finding model author since 2011, and has co-trained and facilitated with him on numerous occasions. Candice was an integral part of the development of the Canadian portal for family finding, acting as Kevin's partner to deliver his model across Canada. Candice joined Texas CASA as the Collaborative Family Engagement Director in 2015, where she oversees the development and implementation of a statewide approach to family finding, known as Collaborative Family Engagement. This initiative is a partnership between Texas CASA and the Department of Family and Protective Services, funded by the 84th and 85th Legislature. Candice works closely with local CASA programs throughout the state of Texas, as well as with the DFPS and Child Protective Services. And I will lastly note that Candice is a certified TBRI practitioner. So again, ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
That was a mouthful on both of you. You both are highly qualified, and I'm really excited to have you both here. So because we normally only have one guest, I am going to target the questions, and I'll say, Katie, this one is for you, Candice, this one is for you, or ladies, it's for both of you. And also viewers, normally we have our set, and because we're still working remotely, each of us is taping from our respective locations, so you know anything can happen because it's live, pretty much. There'll be some edits, but there are things that will happen that can't be edited out. So if they happen, just roll with us. So, Katie, let me start with you. Will you please tell our viewers about the functions of the Alliance and then about the Texas POP initiative?
Sure. Well, thank you. And thank you for having me and giving me a chance to talk with you, Vicki and Candice and the CASA network. As my bio would have indicated, I go way back with you in the child welfare system, so it's always fun to get to visit with you. I'm just sorry we can't be eating lunch right now together, but thank you for inviting me to talk with you. The Texas Alliance is really similar to the Texas CASA network. We are the statewide organization that supports community-based organizations that are delivering services in the child welfare system. So our network includes prevention providers, foster care agencies, adoption agencies, residential treatment organizations, behavioral health services, and so much more. So when you think about the child welfare system, we are the service delivery arm of the child welfare system, which means it's really important that we partner very closely with other stakeholders, including Texas CASA and the CASAs all over the state. And one way we're doing that is through the Texas Permanency Outcome Project. TexPOP is what we like to call it. I think it's the best acronym of all the acronyms, but it really is an exciting effort. It is a large effort. It is a 5-year Children's Bureau, which is the federal administration for child welfare, Children's Bureau funded project led by the University of Texas Steve Hicks School of Social Work's Institute for Child and Family Wellbeing. They are the lead on this, and they brought us in as partners and others as well. The goal of TexPOP is really to create a new practice model to help child welfare agencies engage birth families in planning and decision-making, building partnerships between birth families and foster families, increasing the child's sense of belonging, and bringing all the parties to the table. At a time like now, when the child welfare system is putting a mirror up to ourselves, we have to acknowledge, I think, that biological families have not always been valued. The system has been siloed, with the care of children over here done by foster families, and over here, the other work with the family, with the biological family is done. Those have not traditionally come together, and TexPOP is about bringing foster parents and biological parents together with the support of a model, trained professionals, and parameters in place to respect everybody's position and role. So the goal is permanency, and the goal, I know, of all of us involved is permanency. So we're really excited. TexPOP is now entering its 3rd year, 3 out of 5. I can't believe it, but the 3rd year is a critical year because that is where we take the building of the model that is bringing to bear evidence from other models, including Bruce Perry's work, Signs of Safety, and other models that you may be familiar with, bringing the best of all of those together and piloting that in 3 different areas of the state: Houston, Region 11, which is South Texas, and then the Abilene, Wichita Falls area. So those pilots will be launching this year with the evaluation being conducted simultaneously. And then what we hope to do is learn from this model and eventually scale it to the entire state.
Super. Thank you. Thank you. And you're right. The for all of us, the goal is safe permanency for children. And I guess within the last, and Candice, either one of you ladies can help me with this, but in the last 12 years, the system, if you will, the minds out there have started to recognize and appreciate the connection, the value of connection with family. And so we see these movements happening across the United States. We have a Texas model in Texas for working with families. And so I'm going to ask Candice to talk about our collaborative family engagement model.
Sure. And Katie, I have to say I love everything you shared. As a previous caseworker who worked a lot with foster parents, I know how important they are to building those connections and working with families. So I love that that is the direction of TextPop, and I know we're going to talk more about that, but I just had to say I'm really excited about that. With collaborative family engagement, as Vicki said, we call it Texas's approach to family finding, which is Kevin Campbell's model that we referenced earlier. And it's really a way for CPS, Child Protective Services, caseworkers, and the CASA network to work together to do the similar work that Katie mentioned, to find and engage families, work with them, and really involve them in our practice and putting them at the forefront of that planning and decision making. And really working, it's a team-based approach that we hope can include foster parents and everyone that is working and supporting with children and families in the foster care system. And we're trying to really build connections for those kids that are in care while they're in care, and those connections to be in place and be lifelong after CASA, CPS, foster parents, after all of us have done our work and we're able to exit, that those connections remain in place. So we've just entered last month our 6th year of implementation and across the state. And so we are now at 70% of the CASA network, and we have plans to be statewide with all of the CASA programs as much as possible within the next few years. So we're really excited about that. And in my bio, Vicki mentioned that CFE has been funded by the 84th and 85th. It's also been funded by the 86th legislature now, and we're hopeful and confident for the 87th. So there's been a lot of support for this, and we've seen a lot of benefits for that collaboration between our child protective partners and the CASA network, and the true role of CASA. We talk a lot about CASA best interest advocacy, and that's the role of the CASA. We're pushing that envelope a little bit more to look at whole child advocacy, and really to advocate for the best interest of the child. That's to advocate for the whole child, which is their community, their culture, their family. And so that's where that connection piece really comes in as well.
Super. Thank you. Thank you. So Texas is this huge state where DFPS alone has, Katie, you can tell me this, if I'm correct, DFPS in its entirety has the 12,000 más o menos employees. So we've got this major entity with a lot of stakeholders out there. We have our 72 CASA programs, local CASA programs that provide the services to 217 of the state's 254 counties with almost 11,000 volunteers. So we have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of players in the child welfare arena in Texas. And so I think the reason why I thought it was important to have this conversation today is so that people understand this is not a model of greed. This is a model of success. This is a model of collaboration. The state is big enough where we can have two entities targeting family supports with different approaches with a common goal. So I want to ask you each to talk about, as it relates to your project, you're each working with separate populations, and you each go about it in a slightly different way. So can you talk about that? And I'll start with Katie again. I'm just gonna go back and forth with each one if that's okay. So Katie?
Sure, Vicki, I've often heard Texas is the largest centralized child welfare system in the world. I don't know if that's true. Having been there for several years, it does seem true. So the work of child welfare is more and more being localized, empowering communities, which makes sense in a state as large and diverse as Texas. So as you mentioned, true community collaboration is absolutely critical. You mentioned the 12,000 employees and all the players that are involved in these cases. And I kind of look at it if I look at it kind of from a bird's eye view, I look at it as the public agency, DFPS, the legal judicial system, and then the private service providers. And we all three are the three key pillars, and we have to do our part and work together. And I think traditionally, the foster care community-based service providers have been sidelined, and I think this brings them in, and it helps us recognize our role in working with biological families and with the CPS caseworkers. It will happen anyway under community-based care. I just hope that through TextPop, we're building a model for how we can do that successfully in an evidence-based way. And I would also share for your network that TextPop is absolutely going to be tailored to the communities where it is rolling out. And so there are local advisory committees standing up, and I want to just acknowledge you, Vicki, and your role on the steering committee, really helping to guide the development of the local advisory committees. The local CASA leadership will absolutely be critical. They must be at the table for helping to align all of this work and helping us further our mutual goals. So look for more information about that in the coming weeks.
Super. Thank you. Candice? Same question?
Yeah, so I think similar to what Katie shared about how TextPop is going to look different in all of the communities where it is, we say the same thing about CFE. We have a few different, so we're in about 107 counties now, the work is happening. And I can honestly say it does look different in all of those 107 counties. Even when a CASA program is serving multiple counties, they'll do the work a little bit different in each of those counties because of how the court systems work, family meetings work. Everything is just very different. And as a Canadian coming in, that was a really big learning curve for me. And I'm still learning every day because things are always changing. So we've tried, when we first started CFE, 6 years ago now, we've been evaluated by the University of Texas every year. And the very first year we had a very strict model, so to speak, that had a big checklist and all of these things you had to do. And the feedback through the evaluation was people really love it, they want to do it, but it needs to be simplified. And so now, 6 years in, CFE has 4 components that we call the 4 C's of CFE. And so the first one is collaborate, which is that team-based approach of CASA, CPS, hopefully foster parents, attorneys, any of the professionals working with the family. The second C is cultivate. So we have the use of a lot of different tools that we use to engage families first. And find them if necessary, but this is all about engagement. So we'll start with the tools to engage with folks a little bit differently. The third C is convene. So that's the use of family meetings that CPS runs. And we say that's really the heart of this work. That is how we really involve the family voice and involve them in the decisions, are through the use of those family meetings. And then the last C is connect. Of course, we're doing all of this to build those connections. And so we have some different activities and tasks to really strengthen and make sure those connections are committed to the young person and the parents, really. So that's kind of how it works. Does that answer your question, Vicki?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Thank you.
Vicki, I
So
would
now,
just piggyback, if I can, onto what Candice said. I mean, the alignment couldn't be more ideal. I think these efforts really do dovetail. The work of family finding and collaborative family engagement will help identify a family that can and should be at the table. And then the work of TextPop will be to equip the providers and those folks that are coming to the table where traditionally that may not have been the most comfortable setting, to be able to come to that table, be equipped, understand, have the tools and skills to be able to come to that table and really identify what is best for permanency for this child and work with those at the table, which I hope is the family as well.
Yeah, thank you. Because my next question was, how do these initiatives align? And I think there is.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. In fact, I would ask Candice, is there anything you want to add as it relates to that response? And then you two may want to have Yeah, because it really is, with that primary work happening with the providers, to really equip them to engage. I mean, that's a whole new level of engagement where we see the child's family really communicating in important ways with foster families and other providers. So whereas the collaborative family engagement focus is bringing all these people together to create a support system for the child, the text pop system really focuses on getting the provider and the parents together to get that exchange of information, yes, and then helpfully to help create that bigger picture of provision of services and support again for the child, so that the programs aren't working at cross purposes. They're actually working, if all roads lead to Rome, and Rome is the destination, there can't be too many roads, right?
Absolutely.
It's all about empowering the child and improving the system under which the child is living, or in which the child is living.
And similar to equipping the foster parents and providers, that's exactly what we're trying to do with the CASA network, right? It is a shift for the network to look at that whole child advocacy, or also what I call connection informed advocacy. We know about the need for connections, but it's a shift for perhaps some CASA volunteers to want to talk to parents or want to talk to family. Hasn't historically necessarily been in our role. And so that's a bit of a shift. So we need to equip them with the skills and tools and understanding of why that is so important and crucial to their role as well.
Completely agree. The origin of text pop was really because we were hearing that this was happening anyway. Foster caregivers were establishing relationships with the moms and dads where the kids came from. The kids were maintaining relationships, and it felt like it wasn't right or sanctioned, and the foster parents felt like they had to do that offline when great things were happening. And so we want to legitimize that and take the best of that and turn it into a model that we think will really further that and hopefully improve reunification numbers. And when reunification still isn't an option, hopefully have permanency for the child be more successful.
Yeah, exactly. And again, as I started out with, it's there is a paternalistic attitude to systems anyway, right? We know better than parents. Push the parents out. The state's going to wrap its arm around the child, and the state will know what's best. And in fact, we know, everybody says it, even at the state level, the highest levels will say the state was never meant to be a parent. The state doesn't know how to parent. It's not in the job description of the state to know how to parent. And so this paternalistic attitude has been nationally the driver of systems forever and ever. And again, that recent shift in the recognition of the strength and the value of families and the strength and the value of connectedness has made everybody stop and pay attention. If we're really saying we're here to do the right thing by children and for children, then to do that, we have to involve the family and those people who are important to the child. We have to build those connections for a variety of reasons. And again, systemically, we said, don't talk to the parents. So everybody went underground to talk to parents. Within the child welfare advocacy community, it was the parents are bad guys. If they were good guys, the kids would be home. When in fact, parents aren't bad guys. These are people in crisis. These are people. They're parents. They're always going to be the parent. Nobody's ever going to know best. You have to get the information from the source. You have to find out what people know. You have to build upon what strengths are there in the family to see if that becomes the link home, or if there are other people within that family line that are the link home, or there are other people that are important to the child that become a link home. But we have to explore those options. So for the CASA network, it's about changing that perception. For the provider network, it's about changing that perception. So I want to talk, Katie, about why, because you and I do go back a ways, I'm happy to say. And relationships, it goes back to that whole connectiveness. You can collaborate better when you have a sense of relationship and you build on that, right? Just what we're doing with families, we do with systems. And you and I both recognize the importance of the CASA community working well with the providers, especially the foster families. And we know that there has been that feeling among some CASA volunteers. Well, you, foster family, you're in it for the money. I'm a volunteer, I'm in it for free. I'm in it for heart. You're in it because you're getting money from this. And we know that's a perception that's held by some that needs to change. And we know that for some foster families, the question when the CASA shows up is, who are you and what are you doing in my business? And so one of the things that we're doing together, Katie and I, the Alliance and Texas CASA, we're working together to start building on our own collaboration, to take the relationship that we have and build it into the system so that there is that broad appreciation across systems for each other. And so that means some cross-training. It means presenting at each other's conferences. It means writing in each other's newsletters, but it means really building that presence in each one's domain. Katie, I've said a lot about that, but do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, what I love about child welfare is it does seem like there's this competition about who cares more. Only I have the purest of heart, and that's what I love about everybody. Everybody is mission-based. Everybody is coming to this work because they care, and I think that's where we have so much opportunity. Private providers, foster parents, CASA, CPS caseworkers, judges, ad litems, everyone involved, and there are a lot of people involved. All are coming to this work because they care. I don't think anyone is coming to this work to get rich. But that's right, Vicki. I think you and I have recognized that we can model at the highest level what we hope to see down to the local level, which is real, authentic partnership and respect for each other's roles. And I'm excited about this, and you're a leader, and I learn from you, and our members and our network and providers all over the state need to understand and value the role of CASA. And I think we have an opportunity to elevate that awareness. I think right now it's just so hard. There's so much pressure on the system, and establishing relationships takes a lot of work and time. And who has time right now for that? But I'm committed to making the time. I'm committed to helping raise the awareness of the value of CASA, the importance of CASA, and how providers can interact with CASA, all for the goal of improving the case of the child and the family. So thank you for this endeavor.
Oh, absolutely. You are absolutely right when there is no lack of heart in this. And in fact, I think it'd be bloodlettingly honest to say anybody who enters this arena to make money is not only evil, they're a fool. Because if you're trying to make money off of children, you're evil, in my opinion. That's just Vicki Spriggs speaking, not as Texas CASA, but just as Vicki Spriggs. Because you cannot and should not, in my world, try to make money off the plight of children. So on the assumption that 99.999% of the people in the child welfare arena are really here for the benefit of children and families, there is no lack of heart. There is no lack of heart. And you're right. I think some people will get that, well, I care more than you. Look at what you're doing. Look at what you're not doing. Look at what we're doing. And it's like, it's not that, people. Let's look at the finish line for the child. Let's look at where we want them to go, what we want that to look like in terms of quality, safety, and support, right? Let's look at what the family has to offer here. The family should never be the bystander. The family is the core. So in building on that core, but I want to ask, we know why collaboration is important, and we know every entity, every player has its part. We have the advisory council with Text Pop at the local level that'll be starting to meet soon. And then with CFE, we're involving these players as well. So I would ask either one of you, as it relates to the spirit of collaboration, the goal of children returning to healthy families and finding permanency, safety, permanency, getting their well-being like there. Do you have any other thoughts that you'd like to share?
I just think that we have work to do. I think that it's really, I love to hear that Katie's saying, you know, we want to work with CASA and we can be pushing that with our network, and we can be doing the same. We have a real big opportunity with collaborative family engagement to be working more with foster parents and providers than perhaps we have been in the past, or that perhaps was there in the past at all. Because it's a team-based approach and we want to bring all those voices to the table, you know, I would be encouraging anyone that's implementing CFE to make sure the foster parents and providers for those kids are invited and are part of that process. We've had them come to training, we've had some providers come to training, so I would welcome you know, that to continue. But I think we are all in this, as we said, because of the heart, because we care. And the more we can collaborate and model that team-based approach with one another, I think it just helps the families even more to see that they need that support network. They need those connections. We're not expecting them to do this by themselves. We can't do our jobs by ourselves and in our silos. That's just not the way the world works, right? We need one another, and families need to be at the center of this, and I'm so glad that, you know, we're all moving in that direction. I just got off of a webinar right before I came here, and it was with Kevin Campbell again, and he said parents should be the change agents, and that services are in service to the people and families, not in service for ourselves and service to service. And that's so true. We're all trying to put the families in the center of this, and they have the ability and responsibility to take care of their children, and we can empower them to do that. And so I just think the more we can model that collaboration and teamwork, the more it will only support those that we're trying to help as well.
Thank you.
Katie? I think that's absolutely right. And I would just offer that whether it's Text Pop and the local advisory committees or community-based care settings, we are doing readiness work around the state that is inclusive of CASA and other stakeholders. Find the venue. The venues are there to plug in and get connected. And if they're not there, Vicki and I are going to create them. We are going to create the places to share and talk and learn together. And we are I'm very committed to that. And I know you are too, Vicki. And let us know. You're going to be hearing a lot more about this in the coming weeks and months. But I'm so grateful for all of you that are already participating in some of these collaborative efforts. Thank you.
Super. Well, thank you both for being our guests today. You know, they say it takes a village, and Candice mentioned the word silo. And a village, if everybody in the village closes their door and just focuses on what's happening in their house, the village burns because people aren't maintaining the village. They're just maintaining their house, their silo. So it takes a village, and in the arena of child welfare, it takes everybody who's out there working for the benefit of children and families to step outside of their silo and reach across, because the goal for all of us, again, is a strong Texas. Let's just put it there. We want a strong Texas, and the future of Texas is in the children and families of Texas. And the more we can empower them, the more they are empowered, the healthier they are, the better our future is. So again, Thank you both for being our guests today on this edition of Conversations with CASA. And I want to thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.